Hello, everyone, and welcome. Before we get started, I have something special I'd like to announce, especially for those of you that are using Twitter. As you listen to our conversation today, we would ask you to please tweet out your key takeaways using the hashtag #ConvergeWalmart. A few lucky tweets will win some exciting prizes. Okay, on to the main event. My name is Gayatri Agnew, and I am a proud Walmart associate. I have the pleasure of serving on the leadership team for Walmart Inc.'s Global Responsibility Organization. As many of you may be aware, last fall, Walmart's CEO committed to become a more regenerative company. At its core, what this means is our hope as a company is that our actions will be additive to our planet's future, and that we can be a part of creating a system where we support people living into their full purpose. An incredibly lofty goal, and we know we have a lot to learn to make progress on this regenerative journey. To do this, we want to leverage the power of our business. We want to use shared value to change systems, not just the systems within our company, but the systems and structures around which our company operates across the globe. So I could not be more excited that we're able to talk today with a systems changer. Sonam, it's an honor to be with you here today. I know that for most on the line, you need no introduction. As an Indian engineer, innovator, education reformist, Sonam is the founder of the Students' Educational and Cultural Movement of Ladakh. Sonam has also been awarded the prestigious Ramon Magsaysay Award in 2018 for outstanding contributions in public service and community leadership. It is such an honor for us to host you today. Sonam, you are building a more regenerative education system. So let me start by just asking you, what does this term regeneration mean to you, and what does it mean in the context of your work on education?
Hi, Gayatri, and everyone who's here online today from Walmart. Greetings from the high mountains of Ladakh to all of you down there. It's a pleasure to connect to a company that believes in regenerative ecology. I mean, we struggle most places to be sustainable, and I'm really pleased to hear this from a corporate like yours. I'd like all corporates to become responsible and solve more problems than create. Before I begin to explain what this means to me or various other things we'll be discussing, I thought maybe I should give you a little bit of an idea of where I am and what context I'm speaking from. So for those of you who are perhaps not in India, and even those who are in India, Ladakh is a very remote and a very different kind of world in itself, which is difficult to express in words, and images do a better job. So I'll share a few images and let you understand and answer your question along the way. Let me start by saying that I come from as close as it gets to outer space while still being on planet Earth. We are up high on the Tibetan plateau, the rooftop of the world, 11,500 feet closer to outer space than any earthlings there. Many live even at 14,000 feet, so things get rather different here. This is Ladakh across the Himalayas in the top north of India, beyond the Himalayas, and therefore in the rain shadow of these barriers that the mountains become. And unlike Himalayas, which are lush and green, we are in the rain shadow, a very dry desert, almost like another planet, you would say, as you can see here. As you approach, you would find it almost unlivable. And like outer space, you have temperature swings from +35 to -35, We say that you could get sunburn if you're in the sun and frostbite if you're in the shade. And you could get both, sunburn on your head if it is in the sun, and frostbite on your feet if it is in the shade. So this is how far we are. And we stay cut off from the rest of the world for 6 months of the winter. Only 6 months we are open. And this is how it is. Cold. We are a tiny minority, even technologically and climatically, apart from linguistic and ethnic. So this is what Ladakh is. Now, to understand regenerative, we have so far been talking about sustainable systems. And to me, sustainability is definitely not enough, because that barely manages to keep a balance of what we get. Rather than destroying it, we just manage to keep it. So always, we should leave things better for the next generation than we got them. That's what, to me, is progress. So in the name of progress, we actually go on a path of destructive systems rather than regenerative. To share with you what regenerative to us means in nature and in education, I'll share this example while we are at it with a screen right there. In '94, some of us went and camped at a desert in the middle of nowhere to build a school for those who had failed in the main education system. And this is that patch of desert, far away from any other places, but on the banks of Indus. And together with the students, we designed and built a school that would be a very different school. So this desert, in the next 5 to 7 years, became this. You can see the same desert hosting a school complex designed and built by the students themselves, with, of course, support from grown-ups. And apart from trees and solar power, this school is built of mud, a natural material that you find abundantly under your feet. So everybody can afford it. And it's powered by the sun that you find abundantly over your head. Nobody's so poor they cannot afford sun or earth, soil. And through the times, we started running this school like a little village or a little country, where the students run the system like a little country. They have a government elected for a tenure of 2 months. Those elected take care of all the systems at the school, like some of them take care of all the cows, others solar cookers, organic gardens, solar power plants, greenhouses for vegetables in the winters. Everything here is powered by sun, from cooking to vegetable production, to natural lighting, to electricity, water heating, water pumping from the Indus River, and even the cows live in solar heated cow sheds. Now, we developed, using the science that you find in high school curriculum, using, for example, the chapter on heat about conduction, convection, radiation, we developed buildings that could be fully solar heated without any need for any fossil fuels or heating, even in Ladakhi polar temperatures. So these buildings stay above 18 degrees, most of the times, almost all the times. And outside it is -20. And thanks to the design, they also stay coolest in summer. So leading the growing up of young people and living sustainably, or more in this case, regeneratively. Now, what would sustainably living mean? Here I would like to explain from this picture. you can see we have a lot of trees. So we have enough to cut and burn. We would be ultimately sustainable even if we burnt wood from our own trees and dung from our own animals. You see yaks here, Himalayan, bulls or cows that are very different from normal cows and bulls you find. And they work for you, and even their waste, dung, is used for burning, to cook and to heat. So if we did that, we would be very sustainable because we have grown the trees, we have kept the animals, we'll be keeping a balance. But we don't believe in that. We believe in doing more than just sustaining. So therefore, we use the sun for heating so that all the trees and the leaves are spared burning, and they can enrich the soil and make more trees, plants, nourished and grow a lush green forest. Similarly, we don't, unlike others in Ladakh even traditionally, we don't burn the dung, so we can use it to become manure for other plants and bushes. This is regenerative for me, because we are living in a way that does not just maintain what could be, but we are making it greener and better than before. As you saw, that patch of desert became a green oasis where all these systems, using innovation, science, and technology, you use the sun in such a way that you can spare these resources to heal nature, to make things better than we got them. And this, to me, is regenerative system.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Thank you both for walking us through a better understanding of Ladakh and Ladakhi culture, but then showing us in these images this powerful community that you've created. Concept of regeneration, but you have been a reformer in education. So help me understand a little bit more about your views on the education system and what has been your focus in that transformation process that you've led.
So what I believe is that what we call today the education system, in which we all spend like a precious quarter of our lives, prepares us for something that was the agenda maybe 300 years ago, but not today. So it prepares us for the same, maximizing production, maximizing consumption, conquering nature, and so on. But today we are seeing the consequences of that philosophy and institution established on those principles. We are seeing how air is unbreathable, how water is undrinkable, how soil is untouchable. And if we continue to put more and more of the same inside, we'll get more and more of the same out. So therefore, we have to change things to heal nature. We can't expect to heal when we are putting it more fuel to hurt nature. And therefore, I think education system has to be an instrument in healing and restoring and regenerating nature, rather than continuing with that philosophy we played 300 years ago during Industrial Revolution.
One of the things, Sonam, that's so incredible to me about the vision you have on education is this idea that we can learn by doing. You talk about the practice of the students helping to run the school, or running the school, helping to build the school, running businesses within the school, all of this sort of applied learning or experiential based learning. Can you talk a little bit about how you've worked to normalize or whether this concept of applied learning by doing culture has started to take hold within the systems of education in India?
Well, learning by doing is nothing new. Often we make things sound like inventions or new things, play way method of children's education. Well, play way is the only way that nature helps people or animals even learn. You would have seen how playful kittens are, puppies are. They learn while they play with the mother's tail to do their business, which is catching mice. So play is practiced by even kittens and puppies, dogs and cats. Similarly, the now in vogue is learning by doing. There is no learning without doing, if you ask me. And we human beings, over millennia and millions of years throughout evolution, we have only learning by doing, and not by sitting in classrooms, listening to lectures, scribbling notes. No, that's just from 300 years ago. If you look at our ancestors, when they were hunter-gatherers, they were not learning in rooms and through lectures. They would take their young ones out in the wild, and they would learn from seeing their grown-ups catch, hunting or gathering. As settled farmers, again, we were out there in the field, learning in the thick of things by doing. And that is something we don't forget when we learn through our fingers experientially. It's only 300 years old again when we thought that young people could be put in classrooms and taught through texts and lectures. But evolution, I believe, adapts us to do the things that we have been doing for millions of years. So human young ones, especially teenagers, are gifted with so much energy to cope up with what it takes to learn by doing in the wild, in the forests, in the fields, so that they have a lot of energy. And when we close them or cage them in classrooms, this energy comes out. And when you make them sit quiet, it comes out in ugly ways, which we then brand as teenager rage, rebellion, and so on. Actually, it's because of our faulty approach to education, where we take away from them one of nature's best gifts, that is this energy to learn by doing. So at this school, which I shared with you, I said we designed and built this school with the students, and the school is run by the students. That was because we believed that we must channelize this energy, this gift of nature, into learning. Otherwise, it will be ugly and rebellious, as I just said. So therefore, we engaged them in constructive things like building the school, using physical work, moving bricks, designing things, and run the school as responsible leaders. That's when teenagers become, responsible and become your partner in running the school rather than problems to fix. So to me, learning happens really when you start doing and applying it, because also more of your sense organs are involved than just hearing and seeing something on the board. Like someone very wise said, if I hear, I forget. If I see, I remember. But if I do, I know. So that's how we believe learning happens.
So powerful. That statement that there is no learning without doing is so powerful. And your very specific descriptor of children makes me think of both my own kids and the experiences that so many of us observe in that natural energy that young people around us have. So I love that your school has given space for them to put that energy into creating a more regenerative culture around you. Share a little bit with me about how your perspective on human behavior has informed your work on innovation, right? This idea of unleashing that human potential into innovation.
Innovation can be very interesting ideas that our ancestors practiced without even knowing the eye of innovation. So as little children, we grew up, and later I admired these kinds of innovation. For example, in my region, as I told you, we are very cold in winters, and yet people look up to the winters, especially children look up to the coming of winter, and you would wonder why. Well, our ancestors understood how people think and behave and devised a system where we children would wait till it becomes white with snow, and then every household or neighborhood would have children huddling around the fire with their grandmothers, and storytelling becomes a thing in the evenings, stories after stories. That's good and entertaining. But what I found very surprising and not very nice at that time was that come spring and the first greens are seen outdoors, and storytelling became a sinful activity. So our elders would say, now it is sinful and it will displease the gods, and you'll have, problems like boils and all kinds of problems on your face if you still keep listening to stories. So we would go out in the fields as storytelling became a sinful activity, and we would wait till outdoors became brown and then white again to listen to stories. Much later, I understood that this was an innovation of the highest rank. They didn't have, central heating systems. They didn't have resources, and good they didn't, to burn all the oil and make winters comfortable. But they had resources of this kind, knowing how people behave, that they would ration even resources like stories to keep it for winter when there's nothing else to do and it is so punishing cold. And come spring, they know it is pleasant outdoors. They know people can go and grow food for the whole year. So this innovation, I really loved growing up. Same goes for grown-ups also. They look forward to winters because our ancestors put all the festivals of villages, of monasteries, all in winter. In summer, none, because there's so much happening in summer, and you want to grow food for the whole year. So people wait for winters, and winters pass away counting from one festival to the other. So this I find very interesting as a, learning in innovation. No resources, but impact out of thin air.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the education system in India. You have focused so much on making a system that is both more inclusive and experience-based, which we've talked a little bit about. But can you maybe just share a little bit more about how you hope this changes the experience of young people's access to education over time, not just in your school, but in the system of education overall?
So yes, schools as we know today have become anything but places where you learn experientially. They've become, as far as I see in India and most parts of the world, they've become a place which is like a ritual where you memorize things, or even if you understand just information and not really experience how that could be put to use. Now, I used to talk about it all the time, but people wouldn't think of this very seriously until the COVID pandemic came. The pandemic had many sad aspects, but one thing I think it has changed. And if we grab the opportunity, then perhaps education will never remain the same. This pandemic has shown us that you can do a lot from distance, digitally, using the internet. And even before the pandemic, I used to meet teachers in schools who would say, nowadays the children have become so bad, they don't even listen to our lectures. They disturb others when we are lecturing. And I would say, but I really have more sympathies for the children, for the students, because times have changed. 50 years ago, your lecture was the only source of information for them. Today, they get better lectures on the internet by better communicators than we teachers in a captive school are. and more illustrated with all kinds of animation. So they look up all those things, and why would they then take interest in your dry, boring lecture repeated for the last 5 years? So they behave like this because we have nothing new to give them. And I would say, but nobody would pay heed, that we should outsource lectures and concept building to the internet, which does a better job, and do at school what internet can never do and we are so good at. And that is to apply what is learned in lectures to real life, to work in groups on projects, collaborate with others, and come out with solutions. If it is about photosynthesis, you can learn it best on a garden where you can touch the leaves and feel the sun. That was not very interesting back then, but now we anyway do most of the lectures online. So when schools open again, I hope and pray they don't do the same things as we did before and they become the same schools. I hope and pray that schools now become live laboratories of application, where you go not to listen to the same or a shadow of the lectures you have on internet, but rather apply it with your teachers who are good at helping you make things, do things, solve things, and experience things. So that way you get the best of both the worlds. You can have the lectures of the best teacher in the world, and you can have the application with real people, real mentors and peers to collaborate, which is real world. So that's my hope of how education could become in India, not only India, but the whole world, applied and experiential.
I absolutely love it. It's so powerful. And for those of us at Walmart, I think as we watch how systems function and we see how the business moves and where innovation comes from, what you're describing just unleashes such incredible creativity and human potential. It's very powerful. Sonam, as we begin to wrap up, can you share with me, what are you most excited about as you look ahead to the next 5 to 10 years? Just what motivates or excites you about our future?
The pandemic has been a sad event, and I have sympathies with those who lost their near and dear ones. But I think the pandemic also forces us to learn a few things and look at the bigger picture and change our behaviors. We make such a huge deal of the pandemic, which maybe killed 3 million people or so, a small percentage of the people who got infected. But we never think of what we do to nature, what we do to other living beings. Just to give you a few examples, in the last 50 odd years, scientists say, WWF has come up with a report that says more than 50% of the wildlife has been wiped off from the face of the earth. 58% of the total population. We are not talking about some infected population. These were wiped out by human activities. So you realize who is a bigger virus. In any case, the virus did this when we started playing, fiddling with them. It didn't do on its own. But even if it did, it's so much smaller than what we have done to nature. So I really hope that we learn to see the bigger picture and introspect our own behavior of what we are doing in the name of growth, in the name of GDP. Growth for us, 8%, 10%, but have we seen from the eyes of the deer and the rabbits and the elephants, whether it is growth also for them or total disaster? So on the other hand, we have also seen during the pandemic that how little it takes for us to be happy. It is more bonding with families and communities, getting time to share, our hearts with others, than amassing the whole world in your house making it a museum or a junkyard. We have seen how little we actually need. So why can't we simplify our lives? Why can't we do with less that will keep nature smiling and do no harm to us? So I do want to believe that in the coming 5 or 10 years, I would be able to convey this message to the world, taking help as a demo from the pandemic experience. And if you remember, 2 years ago, we had launched this I Live Simply movement. When we saw that our artificial glaciers or solar heated buildings cannot fix our problems of melting glaciers in Ladakh, we thought that the problems stem in big cities of the world, not here in the valleys in the mountains. So we started our SOS call to the world saying, please live simply in the big cities so we may simply live in the mountains, to change their behaviors. There's a website, ilivesimply.org, which is presented like a fun crowdfunding campaign where people contribute not money, because the planet doesn't need your money, but pledges to change your behavior. That has more impact. So I do hope that now with this pandemic experience, people will perhaps pay more heed to such things which were like far stretched and impractical in the past. So I look forward for people to learn and change in the next few years if we are to survive.
That's an incredible call to action for our audience to think about not just the behaviors of a large company like Walmart, but the behaviors of each individual one of us, our families, in our communities that make up the total change we need to see to be able to sustain the planet. Such a powerful conversation. Thank you so much for taking your time to be with us here today and for presenting us with such insightful and provocative ideas. So thank you so much for your time, sir. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, all of you, and wish you a great day.